The young and the restless spoilers, a web of lies unravels. The Abbott family betrayal. Diane Jenkins had always been a master manipulator. Over the years, she had clawed her way back into the Abbott family, weaving a narrative of redemption and familial devotion. For a time, it seemed her efforts were paying off. Jack Abbott, his heart softened by her persistence, had opened the doors of his family to Diane, and others began to follow suit. Even Kyle, her son, who had once doubted her intentions, appeared to embrace the idea of a reconciled family. But Diane's perfect picture was built on a lie that was about to explode. The return of Allie Gwynn, the supposed granddaughter of Jack Abbott, had become a cherished part of the Abbott family in a remarkably short time. Introduced as the daughter of Jack's long-lost son Chemo, Allie was welcomed with open arms. She brought warmth and positivity into the Abbott household, earning the love and trust of everyone, including her grandfather. But now, Allie was returning to Genoa City with a confession that threatened to unravel everything. She could no longer live under the weight of the deceit that Diane had orchestrated, a deception that had entangled her in its web from the very beginning. Sitting in her apartment with Noah Newman, Allie paced nervously, her hands trembling. "I can't keep lying, Noah," she said, her voice heavy with guilt. "They've been nothing but kind to me. They deserve the truth." Noah nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of her decision. "You're doing the right thing, Allie. It's better to face it now than to keep living this lie." Diane's masterpiece unravels. Diane had carefully crafted the illusion of Allie as the lost granddaughter of Jack Abbott. She had orchestrated every detail, ensuring that Allie's presence would solidify her own place within the family. To Diane, Allie wasn't just a pawn. She was the keystone of Diane's strategy to rebuild her life on the foundation of the Abbott family's trust. But Diane's arrogance had blinded her to the possibility that Allie might develop a conscience. When Allie informed Diane of her plan to confess, Diane's calm exterior cracked. Her voice was low and sharp as she tried to dissuade the young woman. "Allie, think about what you're doing. If you tell them, it won't just ruin me, it will destroy everything you've built with them too. Do you really want to lose their love?" Allie, her resolve firm despite Diane's manipulations, shook her head. "I'd rather lose their love than keep lying to them." "This isn't right, Diane. You know it isn't." The confession. The Abbott family gathered in the sitting room of the Abbott mansion, their usual warmth replaced by a sense of curiosity and concern as Allie stood before them. Jack watched her closely, his fatherly instincts picking up on her nervous energy. "Allie, what's going on?" Jack asked, his voice gentle but steady. She hesitated, glancing briefly at Diane, who was seated in the corner, her face a mask of feigned innocence. Taking a deep breath, Allie began. "There's something I need to tell you all, something I should have told you from the start." The room grew silent, the air thick with tension. Allie's voice trembled as she continued. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm not your granddaughter, Jack. Diane, she hired me. She convinced me to pretend to be part of this family." Gasps filled the room, followed by a stunned silence. Jack's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief and finally, to anger. "What are you saying, Allie?" he asked, his voice low and strained. "This was all a lie?" Allie nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt any of you. At first, I went along with it because I didn't know how to say no. But then, you were all so kind to me, and I started to feel like I belonged. I couldn't keep lying anymore." Diane's fall from grace. All eyes turned to Diane, who suddenly found herself the target of the family's collective fury. Kyle, her son, was the first to speak. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "Is this true? Did you really do this?" Diane stood, attempting to maintain her composure. I did it for us," she said, her voice wavering. "For our family. Allie was supposed to bring us closer together, to help us heal. You lied to us." Jack thundered, his voice filled with righteous anger. "You manipulated all of us, including Allie. How could you do something so cruel?" Diane's carefully constructed world began to crumble around her. She looked at each member of the family, hoping to find some trace of sympathy or understanding, but there was none. Even Kyle, her staunchest defender, looked at her with a mixture of hurt and betrayal. "You always find a way to destroy everything good, don't you?" Kyle said, his voice breaking. "I believed you, Mom. I trusted you. And now, I don't even know who you are." The fallout Allie's confession sent shockwaves through the Abbott family. The trust that Diane had worked so hard to rebuild was shattered, and her place in the family was left hanging by a thread. Jack, heartbroken and furious, made it clear that Diane's actions would not go unpunished. "You need to leave," he said coldly. "I don't want you in this house. I don't want you near this family. You've betrayed us all." Diane tried to plead her case, but her words fell on deaf ears. She left the Abbott mansion that night, her future uncertain and her once bright ambitions in ruins. As for Allie, the family's response was more complicated. While Jack and the others were hurt by her deception, they also saw her courage in coming forward. Over time, they began to forgive her, recognizing that she had been a pawn in Diane's game. The price of deception. Diane's elaborate scheme to secure her place in the Abbott family had backfired spectacularly, leaving her isolated and disgraced. Her actions not only exposed the depths of her deceit but also reminded everyone of the lengths she was willing to go to achieve her goals. Meanwhile, the Abbott family, though shaken, began to pick up the pieces, determined not to let Diane's betrayal define them. For Allie, the path to redemption was long and arduous, but with Jack's guidance, she found a way to rebuild her relationship with the family she had once deceived. And as for Diane, the once mighty manipulator of Genoa City, she faced an uncertain future, her lies now laid bare for all to see. Would you like me to explore what might happen to Diane next or expand on Allie's journey toward redemption? Allie and Gwyn had built a quiet, happy life with Noah Newman. Their relationship was steady, full of love and trust, and for a while, it seemed like she had escaped the shadows of her past. But the guilt weighed heavily on her, growing with each passing day. Every family dinner with the Abbotts, every kind word from Jack, reminded her of the web of lies she was living. She wasn't Jack Abbott's granddaughter. She wasn't the heir to the family legacy. She was a fraud, a pawn in Diane Jenkins's manipulative scheme. And now, the thought of her secret being exposed terrified her. If the Abbotts ever decided to test her DNA, if they ever discovered the truth, there would be no redemption. Noah, perceptive as always, noticed her distress. "Allie, what's going on?" he asked one evening as they sat together in their cozy apartment. "You've been on edge for weeks." Allie hesitated, her heart pounding. Could she tell him? Would he still love her if he knew the truth? Finally, she whispered, "Noah, there's something I need to confess. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Diane's interference before Allie could act on her decision to come clean. Diane Jenkins showed up at her doorstep, her polished appearance a stark contrast to the chaos she was about to create. Diane had heard whispers of Allie's growing guilt, and she wasn't about to let her meticulously crafted plan unravel. "Allie," Diane began, her voice smooth and controlled. "I hear you've been thinking about telling the Abbotts the truth. That would be a mistake." Allie stiffened, her hands gripping the edge of the kitchen counter. "I can't keep lying, Diane. It's eating me alive. They deserve to know the truth." Diane's smile didn't falter, but her eyes flashed with warning. "You don't understand what's at stake here. If you tell them, it won't just hurt you, it'll destroy everything I've built. I've worked too hard to regain their trust, Allie. You can't ruin that for me." "I'm sorry, Diane, but this isn't about you," Allie shot back, her voice shaking with anger. "I'm done living a lie." Diane stepped closer, her tone softening as she reached into her designer handbag. She pulled out an envelope and placed it on the counter between them. "I'm not here to argue, Allie. I'm here to offer you a solution. Take this money and keep quiet. Start fresh somewhere else if you want, but don't say a word to Jack or anyone else. This doesn't have to get messy." Allie stared at the envelope, her stomach turning. You think you can just buy me off? Do you really believe money will fix this? Diane's mask of calm began to slip. It's not about the money, Allie. It's about protecting all of us. If the truth comes out, it'll destroy me, and it'll destroy you too. Do you think the Abbotts will forgive you? They'll see you as a liar, a fraud. This is your chance to avoid that. The cost of Diane's betrayal. Diane's actions weren't surprising to anyone who truly knew her. She had always been willing to do whatever it took to protect herself, no matter the cost to others. But this time, her manipulation hit closer to home. Jack Abbott had been her greatest champion, defending her against skeptics who doubted her intentions. He had welcomed her back into his life, into his family, with the hope that she had changed. And now, all of that trust hung by a thread that Diane was desperately trying to keep from snapping. Allie, Diane said, her voice a mix of pleading and command. Don't throw everything away over a guilty conscience. The Abbotts don't need to know. Jack doesn't need to know. Just take the money and move on. Allie's mind raced. Diane's words were calculated, designed to exploit her fears and insecurities. But as tempting as it was to take the easy way out, she couldn't ignore the voice in her head, the voice telling her that the truth was the only way forward. Allie's choice. Later that night, Allie sat with Noah, the envelope still untouched on the table. She had told him everything, about Diane's scheme, about her own role in the deception, and about the money Diane had offered to keep her silent. Noah listened carefully, his expression a mixture of shock and sadness. Allie, he said gently, you're right. You can't let her control you. The Abbotts deserve to know the truth, and you deserve to be free of this. But what if they hate me? Allie asked, her voice breaking. What if they can't forgive me? They'll be hurt, Noah admitted. But they'll also see that you're trying to make things right. That's what matters. A family betrayed. The next day, Allie gathered her courage and went to the Abbott mansion. Diane was already there, sipping tea with Jack and Kyle, basking in the warmth of the family she had fought so hard to reclaim. When Allie walked in, her face pale but determined, Diane's smile faltered. She knew what was coming. Jack, Kyle, I need to talk to you, Allie began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. There's something you need to know. As she confessed everything. The lies, the manipulation, the money Diane had offered, Jack's expression darkened. Kyle looked at his mother, his eyes filled with hurt and betrayal. Is this true, Mom? He asked, his voice trembling. Did you really do this? Diane opened her mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. The truth was undeniable, and the trust she had worked so hard to rebuild was shattered in an instant. The fallout. The Abbott family was left reeling from the revelation. Jack, devastated by the betrayal, made it clear that Diane's place in the family was no longer secure. I gave you another chance, he said coldly. I believed you had changed. But all you've done is prove that you're the same manipulative liar you've always been. As for Allie, the road to redemption would be long and difficult. But Jack, despite his anger, recognized her courage in coming forward. You made a mistake, he told her. But you also did the right thing by telling the truth. That means something. Diane, on the other hand, was left to face the consequences of her actions. Isolated and disgraced, she realized too late that her lies had cost her everything. The family she had fought to reclaim was now further out of reach than ever before. A lesson in trust. Diane's downfall served as a stark reminder of the cost of deception. For the Abbotts, it was a painful but necessary lesson about the importance of trust and honesty. And for Allie, it was a chance to start anew, free from the lies that had once defined her. But in Genoa City, secrets have a way of resurfacing. And for Diane, redemption seemed further away than ever.